social platforms. Welcome to this week's live. Problems with policy and pricing. This is a everyday common occurrence. Many thanks to Brenda from BE Branding for raising this topic. I look forward to sharing a couple of anecdotes of my own struggles in this particular area, as well as some things that I've found to be successful. Um, I would say that there are some common attributes that we're going to attempt to speak to when it comes to um, the difficulties that we can experience in problems in pricing. And let's contextualize this, everyone. Um, we're talking about being in the moment when we discover that there is a issue that has come up with pricing or an issue that has come up associated with a policy that we were not aware of. And what do we do in the moment so as not to be reactive or so as not to create aversion in the interaction with another human being, and rather instead navigate the situation not only with grace and composure, but with some influence and, quite frankly, with leaving the interaction as a great psychologist, great forensic psychologist that I used to work for and with used to say, to leave the interaction with some sense of power. Um, Very often, policy is something to which all people are subject, and how an agency or an organization regulates its operations, which means that they are pretty much unchanging. And policies in practice are supposed to be even-handedly applied. So, a policy that I'm not aware of is not a personal assault toward me, but rather something that I have to align with. Pricing is also another one of those phenomena that can sometimes be experienced um, as some kind of personally triggering issue, as opposed to something that uh, all people must align with. It's unusual for someone to go to Starbucks and negotiate the cost of a cup of coffee or one of their specialty drinks. I'm not saying people don't try that, but everyone reasonably goes to a Starbucks anticipating that they're going to pay this much money for this drink. And um, we don't see too many experiences of people feeling personally, let's say, assailed as a result of the price being the price. But given all of that, let's talk about some fundamental attributes here. Discovering that a price or policy exists when we didn't account for it in our thinking has a uh, unanticipated influence on us in the moment, or at least it can. I will provide an example of this. Uh, I recently, within 6 months, I was involved in a very minor fender bender in a parking lot. I was backing out of a spot, and someone in a rental vehicle um, collided with my truck that was moving. Because I was backing up out of the parking spot, I was at fault. Uh, of course, we exchange the formalities, and I contact the insurance company and let them know that this happened, and I'm anticipating a rate increase in my insurance. What I'm about to tell you has nothing to do with insurance, my insurance rate. I then discover in the form of mail that a agency is contacting me on behalf of the rental car company to collect more money than what the insurance company paid them for the accident. So, in other words, a new bill was presented with me. My initial response to this was anger. And then upon analyzing why my impulse was this way, these are the kinds of, as Tony Blauer would say, Socratic questions I would ask myself. Um, I'm feeling anger. Why am I feeling anger? Because an expectation of payment has been placed upon me in an impromptu way. I wasn't expecting this. So, what we know from the research about anger is that violating expectations or blocking a goal are automatically precipitators of anger. What's my expectation? My expectation that I wasn't going to have to spend more money this month. And now all of a sudden I have something that is causing me to pivot my expectation. Now I have a new bill. What are the circumstances of this bill? I had a fender bender with another organization, with another vehicle that was owned by a rental company, and I called it into my insurance company. Next question. Why didn't my insurance company completely satisfy the bill? That's something worthy of exploration. Um, Within a short period of time, through embracing a Socratic approach, I learned that um, the agency that was contacting me for this money might be scamming me, did a little research about who they were, and I redirected them to the insurance company. And when I called the insurance company to say I'm in possession of this letter that indicates that more money is due, their immediate feedback was no, 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 no. They shouldn't be contacting you directly. They should be contacting us. So um, there's an initial experience. The initial experience is more than likely anchored in expectations of whatever I'm holding at the moment are being influenced to change. What's the expectation in this case? That I wasn't going to have to spend more than what I was anticipating spending today, this month, this quarter. Um, I'm observing that this stimulus is being introduced and it's instigating what Tony would call a fear spike, but what I would describe as emotional arousal. Why is it instigating emotional arousal? More than likely for reasons that have nothing to do with this other agency or person that's advising me of this situation, but everything to do with me. What I'm thinking, what I'm anticipating, what I'm expecting, what I'm believing. Um, is it okay to feel the impulse that gets instigated as a result of this new stimulation that occurs? Yes. Can I weather that? In spear care, we call that weathering the ambush. You have to weather the ambush before you can move on to your next thing to do. So, this is like an emotional ambush. I'm moving along my day, an emotional ambush occurs. What's the first thing I have to do? Accept that this is happening, weather the ambush. What's the ambush? The ambush is me. The ambush is all of my thinking and structure through which this is being filtered. A lot of that involuntary, at least initially. Then what can I do? Then I can presume that if I think through this, what I'm originally conceptualizing, what I'm originally thinking, is probably going to be subject to change. Um, what are some kinds of pricing challenges that come up in day to day life that can instigate this emotional arousal? Very often, it's an increase of something that we didn't anticipate or expect. And then all kinds of fear that I'm not going to be able to pay it, fear that my life is going to be inconvenienced, fear that there's something wrong with me or I've done something wrong, fear of judgment, fear of criticism. None of that has to do with the notice. None of it. None of it has to do with the person who's messaging it. All of it has to be anchored somewhere here. Am I able to overcome what the impulses would have me do and instead engage some capacity for being assertive in my communication, which does not mean that I'm instigating conflict. When I contacted the agency that sent me the bill beyond what the insurance company gave them, I thought through my situation before calling them, and I allowed the person to go through all of their perfunctory prompts, all of their preliminary prompts that they have to get through before they just simply announce there's a balance due and we're an agency here to collect it, and what are you going to pay? Um, upon um, that review and getting myself anchored before the call, here's what I was able to say. Um, I'm in possession of this notice. I've done a little Google research about your company. Seems like there's some controversy surrounding these letters that go out. Upon contacting my insurance company, my instructions were to redirect you to them to collect the open balance if there even is one. There shouldn't be. But if there is an open balance, the mechanism by which you should be engaging that to attend to um, any deficiency being satisfied will be through the insurance company. Have I made myself perfectly clear? Uh, we'll contact the insurance company, Mr. Prisco. Thank you. And they hung up on me. And that was the last I heard of them. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to hear from them again, but what I was done with that. I was done. Now, it may be the case that I learn, which I don't think I'm going to, but I may learn that there may be some more money due. If that is the case, I'm going to be able to accept that far more readily than I were if I just indulged the impulses that came along with the announcement that my expectation of whatever I was expecting was going to be violated and the fear that consequently ensued. Um, when it comes to policies that I didn't know about, uh, policies, uh, let's say generally speaking, have less direct nexus to, let's say, personal performance. You can adjust behavior without expense. When pricing is adjusted, this is a little more palpable. It may You may feel it a little more in your pocket. You may be able to conceptualize how some other area of your life may not be served because you've allocated these resources over here to this unanticipated price increase. With policy, it's only an adjustment based on the fact that you didn't know. If you don't know what you don't know, you can let yourself off the hook for what you didn't know. Be gentle with yourself. If you're prone to, let's say, immediately assuming more shame or guilt than necessary, that has nothing to do with the world. That's got everything to do with us as people. And let's say, and I've been subject to this a lot of times, let's say I'm using language in a way that's a violation of policy. Let's say I'm uttering some profanities, and someone says to me, Mr. Prisco, we have a safe language policy here that excludes the use of profanity. Um, the impulse of shame or guilt is going to be much shorter because I can make an adjustment or a correction right there, take responsibility for what I just did, and adjust. Well, what if I don't agree with the policy? This happened a lot during COVID restrictions, where we were getting requests for assistance from companies that had to enforce COVID safety measures. Let's say the policy is to wear a mask. There are lots of people that didn't want to wear masks during a period where that was a requirement. People would find it personally offensive. We were getting called to help address violence problems over COVID safety measures. And how could we help employees message things about policies that reduced their risk of aggression and violence? Well, we did what we normally do in our training in terms of helping people with validation, deferring to policy, suggesting a course of action, and then describing how it would serve them. But what if you're on the receiving end of that and you don't agree with the policy and you find the policy personally offensive? In as much as you don't have to agree, the policy is something that is supposed to be even handedly applied to all people, whether you agree with it or not. And um, this isn't to say that there aren't times where we shouldn't be outspoken about a need for change. Lots of policies over the years in a variety of sectors have needed to change because of people requiring, uh, let's say, logging their objection about it. And that when that's brought to a number, lots of people uttering the same thing. The agency better consider potentially a policy change. That's how change happens. People have to get outspoken. But let's talk about the individual interaction. Let's say the policy comes down and I don't agree with it. I do have the ability to be assertive in my communication to log my objection while also comporting with the policy. I've had plenty of experiences that I've had to comport with policy that I don't agree with, whether it's for a required waiting period or a big one for me was when we had the massive transition to electronic health records and healthcare organizations now interact with patients through an app. And you can't talk to your doctor anymore. And you have to um, engage some kind of app or program to just communicate questions with your physician. Um, this was something that I logged objection with, but also at the same time adhered to because I still had needs that needed to be attended to. And if an agency that serves many, many people is engaging in a policy, I can do two things that might not fit together. um, I can still do them parallel. I can say, just to offer some feedback, even though it hasn't been solicited, I'd like the feedback that my preference would be to speak to a physician or a care provider. And to be able to do that would be a lot more efficient than this other method. So I'm going to engage this other method because I really don't have an option, but I minimally would like it known that I'm not experiencing this in a positive way at all. And for what it's worth, we've heard this from some great thinkers on social media, but there's also a tremendous amount of research about the health implications of not saying what you need to say. If you don't say what you need to say, that's not the world's fault. That's on you. That's on me. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't occasions where people haven't been conditioned into being silenced because of abuse. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking in general that uh, if I don't say what needs to be said, if I'm carrying around angst in a relationship with a provider, a company, an agency, a business partner, and and I'm identifying that I'm really not saying what needs to be said in order for me to feel or be okay about it. Uh, our recommendation would be for you to appraise why that is and to engage a Socratic process of questioning why that is. Uh, in the course of my career, advocacy for human rights is not always met with celebration. There are occasions where advocacy for human beings falls on ears that are not supportive of it because it deprives the people in authority of dignity. And consequently, they may engage in resistance to the advocacy, disagreement with the advocacy, ad hominem attacks because of the advocacy. And there was a period of time that my advocation for human rights was probably too incisive, too caustic, because I did not agree that suffering needed to be in the lives of people unnecessarily. But what I've come to learn through my own experience about change, true sustainable change, is anchored in the proverb to go fast, go alone, to go far, go together. To go together takes a lot more time. To go together takes a lot of influence and patience, which means along the way, I may have to witness a lot of unnecessary suffering, which means a policy is not going to change overnight. So I may have to live with a policy I don't like while logging some kind of objection to it in the form of assertive communication that doesn't necessarily take a stake in change in the moment. I'm just letting someone know how I feel about the policy. So, these are everyday occurrences, problems with pricing and policy. What are the takeaways from today's live? Pricing issues can have a more immediate impact, at least anecdotally, because it can put us in touch much more readily with loss associated with the fungible commodity we use in money. It can be converted into anything, and now all of a sudden I'm going to have less of it because of this new pricing expectation that's been placed upon me. What do we know about expectation? A violation of expectations in my life is going to instigate anger. Can I ride that impulse and then engage a capacity for Socratic questioning to manage the fear that's coming up in me that I'm not going to have enough money or I'm no good or whatever the case might be? Yes. Policy, even handed distribution is the spirit of what policy is supposed to do. Am I able to negotiate that policy is suspended in order for me to get my needs met? Maybe. The likelihood of that's pretty low. Do you see many people navigating the requirements of purchasing a cup of coffee at a barista? The policy is coffee has to be paid for. Am I able, as a result, to log my objection while still adhering to the policy? Yes. All of this contemplates growing awareness in how I think and how I behave, and growing consciousness in how the nervous system works in relationship to the brain. I hope that you got some meaning and value out of this. I enjoy doing these lives, and I hope that problems with pricing and policies beleaguer you less in your life, maybe as a result of a little bit of the information we talked about here today. I wish you all well. Take good care.